Welcome everybody to the Wednesday class.
Good morning.
And shall not be, what was the name? Wednesday class that shall not be named. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to everybody who is here in the Gallery of Rogues, or the Rogues Gallery. Stuart, Michael, welcome. David, Karen, Arlene, Ron, and Flossie, and the plethora of people watching online, although nowhere near the number who are going to be taking Karen's Immigration to America class that begins next Tuesday. So please sign up for that if you haven't already. It is free of charge. It is on Zoom, and looking forward to that. So welcome again, everybody. We hope everybody's had a good week now that the holidays are over. Remember, also food festivals coming up in 2 weeks. Not even 2 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks. 2 weeks from Sunday. So we'll go with 2.5 weeks. 2 weeks from Sunday.
2.5.
Yeah, I hope everybody's going to be able to come. And if you're not, you are banned from Georgia for life.
Oh, no.
And so,
Rabbi, are they having a shuttle from the JEA?
that I need to check. I think they are. They always do. So, Bob, we'll send that. That'll be sent out. But hopefully they will have a shuttle. Welcome to Lou as well, and Arnold. So I hope they're having a shuttle. They should. They almost always do. So I assume, but I'll double check for you, Ron. I apologize. I should have done that earlier. And so many things. I hope everybody had a good high holiday season. And what we're going to talk a little bit about today is something a little bit more esoteric than what we usually talk about, because we're going to talk about. Welcome everybody to the Wednesday class.
Good morning.
All right, sorry, we just got the feedback there. Forgot to turn off YouTube. Maybe we're just starting YouTube now. So if we're just starting YouTube now, welcome everybody. So spirituality was the question that was asked, and we decided to talk about. David gave a whole bunch of good topics that we'll talk about in the future as well. But spirituality, and we're going to get the definitive answer in the next 45 minutes. So everybody who did not watch it, the other 8.2 billion people are missing out, because this is we're going to define it, and we're going to get down to it and figure it all out today in no uncertain terms. For those of you who don't know me, that is called sarcasm. Sarcasm, just to let you know. So when we think about spirituality, it's a really interesting question because of a wide range of thoughts. First of all, Judaism is not necessarily a spiritual religion first, because what kind of religion are we? A religion that's based on laws, practicality. You know, when Moses goes up the mountain, do we hear about his spiritual connection with God? No, what do we read about? That he's given what? Commandments. Now, a lot of spirituality is inferred later on with the awe of, there's some references, the awe and the light on Moses and how he looked, but that's a lot of it. Most of it is centered on, here are the laws, and when the people don't get the laws, they get frustrated, and here are the laws again. It's much more centered on ethics. It's the beginning. So ethics, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about the Musar movement of the 19th century. Be a good person. Commit yourself to God in a way that is going to elevate humanity. And that is it. That's in summation what we learn. So when we talk about spirituality from a Jewish perspective, you cannot negate this practical aspect. So spirituality that leads you away from this ethical viewpoint, or does not lead to the ethical viewpoint and thus practice in ethics, is not Jewish spirituality. So that is probably one of the easiest ways to define it, is that it cannot cross hairs with what is already Jewish. So that is, now as we look at the Bible, it begins and really stresses this ethical code from Moses through most of the Bible. That is what we speak about most often. What are the prophets? The prophets are there to tell us we're not being ethical. We're focusing too much on ritual. Judaism is a ritual religion, but it's ethical first. So the prophets are saying you're too ritualistic, and ritual without ethics is meaningless, which leads us also again to spirituality without ethics is meaningless. So the Bible is mostly have a relationship with God, and that will lead you to being a good person. Spirituality is inherent, obviously, but it's not the center. But as we know, once you understand the ethics and you practice ethics, then you can go to spirituality. And we see a little bit more of that as time goes on, especially with people like Ezekiel, who sees relationship with God questions, with Job, who questions God and motives, with Ecclesiastes, who goes around and asks questions. So once you know ethics are there, then you can start going to the questions. And what are some of the questions that arise? The major question that arises in the Bible towards the end is, how can the world not work like it's supposed to? The world is supposed to be, I am a good person, I'm rewarded. If I'm not a good person, then I'm not rewarded. But we see people who are good who are not rewarded, people who are bad who are rewarded. A very basic question. And that's where we come with the idea of the next world, the heaven. And heaven also brings forth another understanding of spirituality, that spirituality maybe that continues forever. That the life we have here, once it ends, what we do here is connected to what happens in the next world, which was not necessarily the ancient belief system. Everybody dies and you go to the underworld and that's what happens. Now we're saying, wait a minute, maybe what I do here matters forever. And that brings us to the possibility of a whole different level of spirituality, because it goes beyond our time here. It goes beyond our connection between soul and body. And so this is where we start to see this idea of searching for God, which is another question of spirituality. Now, some believe that spirituality can only be found in moments of connection where we have no authority over when it happens. We connect with God in the moment and it's almost epiphany, but it goes away. So by being a good person, by eating your vegetables and paying your taxes, eventually you will possibly have this moment of connection with God. And that was one of Martin Buber's ideas, as we've talked about before, the I, thou versus the I, it. But beyond that, we start to see that spirituality may have more in Judaism as time goes on. But again, you got to get the ethics first. The ethics have to be there. We don't teach our kids spirituality when they're 4 years old. We teach them ethics. Because as we'll see, even if you want to be spiritual outside the bounds of Judaism as a Jew, it still has to be ethical in its origins. There just can't get, so if you ever hear spirituality that doesn't lead you to ethics, that's not going to be Jewish spirituality. That's the easiest way to determine it. But what is spirituality then? Now, we know we're supposed to be ethical. We know we're supposed to have a relationship with God. I can have a relationship with God that does not have spirituality at all. God tells me to be a good person, I'm going to be a good person. Like my parents, I can have a wonderful relationship with my parents, but there may not be spirituality. Same with friends. And I can exist without the spirituality as long as I'm being a good person. That's what Judaism tells us. You may not have as meaningful of life, but is a fulfilling one as long as you're doing what you're supposed to. Now, some would say ethics need to be based upon the principles that I believe in one God who says I should be ethical. That's one Jewish perspective. You have to believe in God who tells you have to be ethical. There's another Jewish perspective that says I don't have to believe in God. As long as I'm ethical, I can still be a Jew. And hopefully I'll believe in God one day. The end result of your actions are the same. It's just your belief system may be a little different. So now let's get to later on as we start trying to figure out what this spiritual connection is. It's almost like, who was it who said, I don't know what pornography, I can't define pornography, but I know what it is when I see it. It was
Justice Stewart, I believe.
It was a vice presidential candidate, wasn't it? No, that was
I thought it was Justice Stewart on the
Justice
Supreme
Stewart.
Court.
Yes, I'm thinking of another quote. Yeah, it was one of the Chief Justice, not Chief Justice, one of the Supreme Court justices.
Yeah.
Perfect. Which one was it again, David? David's the
I
lawyer.
believe it was Potter Stewart.
All right, thank you.
That's right.
So spirituality is, to some, a very similar idea. I can't define spirituality, but I know what it is when I see it. I feel it. You see a lot of people say I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. Which Judaism says is okay as long as you do what?
Ethical.
As long as you behave. That's okay. In some strands. But if we know spirituality cannot be defined, it's kind of like God. We can't define God, but we're still supposed to try. You know, we're trying to find God. We can't define God, but we still look for God. We're still trying to find God. And the spirituality is the same way. We can't always describe what it is, but we should anyway. So one of the really interesting definitions of spirituality is you have the body and you have the soul. And spirituality is the dance in harmony between the body and the soul. It's when our soul and our body are in complete attunement and we can connect. And it gives us the ability to bring out wonderment and faith and vibrancy to our lives when body and soul are connected. We're already ethical, but now we have a new type of fusion that creates an extra vibrancy that helps us transcend and find God. It's the light of God we search for, and that's what spirituality is. It's trying to find this connection with God which can occur when our soul is perfectly fused with our body, which is again very esoteric, but again, it's important to bring the soul into it, because if the soul is brought in, that means spirituality is connection with God that is eternal, not limited to our time here. So, what are some ways people look for spirituality? Excuse me. Now, one of the things we have to understand again is spirituality in Judaism cannot be narcissistic either. You can be a narcissist and still be ethical, but it has to be a way of transforming ourselves in which we just don't live for ourselves. If we're connected to God, that means we are connected to everything. And if we are a narcissist, even though you can be a good person as a narcissist, you are limited on your spiritual capability because you cannot connect to everything. You cannot connect to the whole. You cannot connect to God as easily. So, spirituality is connecting to God. It's being connected to other people. It is the soul being fused with the body so that it continues on forever. It should be leading us to either continue or become ethical. It should connect us to all of this. So, when do we feel this connection? How do we feel the connection to the world? How do we feel the connection to God? In some viewpoints, it can be through traditional experiences in an enhanced way. For instance, we light the candles on Shabbat. That is to honor God and to say that Shabbat is beginning. But what if we say lighting the candles is not just about acknowledging God has given us a day of rest, but taking it to another level? That when I light the candles, I feel connection to God. I feel the wonder of the world. I feel compassion for other people. I feel gratitude for what God has given me. The ritual is basic and really only needs to be an appreciation of God and let's celebrate the Sabbath. But what if it's a wonderment? I light the candles and I think about the world and how incredible it is and all the connections I have and who I have them with and how I'm part of the whole. And there is more to me than just myself. And that we all have a part to play, and it's an eternal experience. This is using simple Jewish rituals to bring us to another level of spirituality. Now, some people need to meditate to find spirituality. Some people need to see mountains. That is fine as well. The mountain ones is not always as good because you're limited to when you see mountains, and in Savannah's case, that is never, ever. They don't even allow picture books of mountains in Savannah libraries. We're so flat here. But the rituals of looking at a mezuzah, putting on a tallis, saying a prayer for nature when I see it, of blessing my children, if that can lead me to wonderment and awe, and how is this possible that I have this privilege? How is it possible that I am so much a part of everything? That wonderment is in many ways spirituality. One way. So using the tools that we've been given by Judaism, the holidays. We are expected to celebrate the holidays, but how do we take it to a new level? Shavuot, we just did Sukkot. You know, you build your hut for Sukkot, which I still haven't taken down from my house, and I probably won't till next year because I'm pretty lazy. But building the sukkah for us today is about the bounty that God has given us and appreciation that we have food, that we are satiated, that we can appreciate that other people are not so lucky, and how we have to then go out of our way to help others. Appreciate that God, we expect, wants everybody to have this feeling of satiation, but not everybody does. That could be spirituality to many. It checks off the boxes: soul and body, ethics, connection, wonderment. So using Jewish ritual is one of the ways to do it. It can also deal with everyday occurrences. So like Judaism, although we've had aesthetics throughout Judaism, you think of spirituality often of people meditating in a cave, right? You got to be connected, disconnected, and feel the world. That is not a Jewish way for spirituality, because although we've had Jews who've lived in caves, and we had the Essenes who did this, but for us, spirituality can be part of what we do daily. Eating food, as I mentioned. You see a lot of the Hasidim, what do they do on Friday night for Shabbat? They start dancing before the Sabbath as a way to create this wonderment, this appreciation. That's what the Baal Shem Tov brought to the table in the 17th century. So all of these moments that we find on a regular day basis can be used for spirituality if you want to take it to another level. So for Judaism, you've got the rituals, you've got the everyday living parts, and these can all, in connection with ethics, bring us to a higher level. And again, it is not easily defined, and not everybody seeks it, but there should be at least these basic categories. Now, when you think of spirituality in Judaism, what's the one word that comes into our minds today more than any other? It's an aspect of spirituality that's talked about all the time in Jewish circles and outside Jewish circles, and that would be Kabbalah. The Kabbalah is a way to use those tools where we have body, soul, Jewish ritual, ethics, everyday life occurrences, to bring it to another level, especially when it comes to study. And so Kabbalah, or mysticism, some would say some sort of occult knowledge, which is a terrible way, because occult has, really negative stereotypes today in the way the word's used, so don't use it. Mysticism is what we talked about a moment ago. The belief that we cannot find God, but we should still search. That's what Kabbalah is. That's what spirituality is. It's searching for God. Something that we are not supposed to be able to complete, but we still need to do. Again, it's a very simple, there's a lot of easy metaphors, playing sports. We're never going to be the best tennis player of all time. Professional tennis players are not going to be the best tennis players of all time, but they keep playing. They enjoy it and they want to get better at it. Golfing, which is even a better example. The most frustrating of all sports. You don't move around, the ball's not moving, you control every aspect. You can buy whatever club you want, whatever ball you want. You can place it on the little divot thing in any place you want. But yet what? It's frustrating because you never can get it right. And this is Kabbalah. How do we try to improve our golf game or tennis game, even though we know we're never going to be Tiger Woods or Roger Federer or Serena Williams, whoever you want to take, Chris Everett Lloyd, my favorite. So what we believe in Kabbalah is that we all have a connection with God, and that extra spirituality, that extra connection is there just waiting to come out, waiting to be revealed. And so spirituality is investigating how to find this connection. And as we've talked about many times, there are basically three dimensions of Kabbalah. There's the investigation, the experiment, and the practical. So how do we find this hidden meaning? We search for it. We read texts. We go on quests. what did Abraham Joshua Heschel said? Mystics want to take the whole wheat of the spirit before it's ground into the millstones of reason. So it's going beyond reason, but not ignoring reason, to find an encounter with God. And once we investigate, you try and experiment. And that is looking at theories. If God is everything, then I am part of God. But what does that mean? How did God create humanity if God is everything? How can God create something from nothing? How am I connected to God? Is there a spark of a connection? How do I make it grow? How am I connected to the whole, and how am I an individual at the same time? How is my behavior connected to my belief system? And so these, I have no answers. I'm just giving questions. Some would say you need to do the daily devotional. By going through prayers, I become closer and open myself up to this spark. Others say that maybe you don't need to do prayer as much. You need to practice meditation or do other things. You need to read the Talmud more, come to text. So again, I will give my favorite interpretation of Kabbalah. I use it all the time ad nauseum, that we are waves in the ocean. Have I done this one before? Probably, right? That we're all waves in the ocean. So if we want to explain how we're part of everything and individuals, a wave in the ocean is only a wave for a very limited amount of time. And each of us is a wave. Some of us are waves that last longer because we live longer. Some of us are bigger waves. That could be height or personality. Some of us are foamier. Maybe we're more witty or more arrogant. When we are a wave, though, and we look out, what do we see? All we see is the ocean. We are limited by what we see as a wave. We can only see what we can see. But yet, a wave cannot be separated from the ocean, because a wave taken away from the ocean is not a wave anymore. So even when we are waves, when we have our individuality for this limited amount of time, we still have to be connected to the whole. And while we're a wave, while we're individuals, we cannot see the whole picture. We look as far as we can. And then when we die, what happens? We become part of the ocean again. Now, does that mean we lose our individuality? Who knows? That's a debate, but it does mean we go back to the whole. Anybody watch Star Trek?
Used to.
Deep Space Nine. So there's a character on Deep Space Nine who is basically just sludge. You know, but he can form himself to look like a human being. But every so often he has to return to his form, which is sludge, and he has to be in the bucket for a certain amount of time. He eventually finds his own people, and his own people are sludge, and they live in a giant pond of sludge. They can leave and be individuals, and when they go back to the sludge, they're still individuals within the sludge of the whole. So they have both the individual and the collective in their minds. It's not like the Borg, because the Borg, or the bad guys also, are only a collective mind. This is an individual mind that feels the collective together, which is in tune with Judaism, because we don't believe in hermits, you know? We have, Jewish mystics are not hermits that walk around and are alone all the time. And we are not the people who believe that we have to live in poverty all the time. Now, we don't believe in gluttony, but we believe if we are going to be good people, we have to be able to have food and clothes to do it. And so this is a little bit of Kabbalah. But there are other questions that come up about spirituality. What if I'm Jewish and I want to be a spiritual seeker, but I don't want to go to services? And I don't necessarily believe in God. Now, can you still be a Jewish spiritual seeker? The answer is yes, as long as you don't break the first rule. And what's the first rule?
Being ethical.
Ethical, right. You can still be a Jewish spiritual seeker if you don't believe in God, as long as you don't break the ethical aspect. Now, you generally don't want to be a hermit either, but the 19th century brought about this question and put it to the forefront. It had always been a question. It became the idea of Musar. Okay, Musar is it's a word used often in the Bible, kind of means virtue. So the question for people of the 19th century, which is still the question for the people of the 21st century, in a world where we are welcome into society, in a world where science is becoming preeminent. At the 19th century, of course, it was the Industrial Revolution, but they already saw the writing on the wall, where the practical and the practical is overwhelming the spiritual, and we are looking at a way that we can be a people, part of society, and not as religious and not as ritualistic. How do we find God as Jews? And this became a very big reform movement mantra, although it's used in the Orthodox as well. And the answer is yes. It is a virtue-based ethical system, not based entirely sometimes on God. It is the idea that we have an evil inclination in us. We don't know where it comes from, maybe, if we don't believe in God. But how do we focus ourselves to bring about a restraining order on this evil inclination and only use the goodly inclination we have as well? So how do we find spiritual connections when we don't have all these connections to the Jewish world? How do we search to be spiritual? And that was a whole different idea. And again, the acculturation really left us with the question, can I be spiritual if I am not ritualistic? Can I be spiritual if I don't believe in God? Can I believe I'm part of the whole if I don't believe God created the world? And the answer Musar brought us was yes. Even if we don't believe in the next world, even if we don't believe in God, we can still believe we are connected to other people. We can still believe there's more than meets the eye. Sorry about my phone.
Okay.
There's a new phone system. Can you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
There's a new phone system we're implementing, and so every time the bell rings or any call is done, I get a call on the second phone. It's like the bat phone. I can't use it, and I can't disconnect it, because if I disconnect it, it cuts off my internet. And I've already taken the phone off the hook, and I'm still getting the beeping every time.
Can you mute it?
You cannot mute it. You cannot do anything to it. If I throw it down and break it, then I will lose my internet connection. So
Jason will fix it.
Jason will fix it eventually. Yes, it's on the list. So, well, that's one of the reasons we changed our phone system, because the phone I have, I can't mute the doorbell unless I mute everything. So like when somebody calls the office, they want to talk to me, whoever gets the message has to physically come into my office and
Oh,
give me
they
the
must love
message
that.
because they can't call me, because if they call me, that means I'm hearing every ring and every doorbell. So it makes it more interesting. So spirituality is, how do I control my urge to throw this phone? It's now two of them. But the Musar movement brought the idea that we can be good human beings and find connection as well. For many, it's not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is through the Jewish ideals and belief system. But as I mentioned in my sermons, for Jews, we believe we have the cheshbon nefesh, the spiritual bill. What are we doing to spiritually connect to God? Are we reading text and looking for the extra meaning? Are we trying to find the hidden spark? Are we trying to find wonderment when we are plagued by the normal, the mundane, which is really not a plague unless you look at it that way? How in society where my kids have access to everything all the time, whether it's, they're with kids at school all day, then they have access to TV or the internet. And if we go to Walmart or Target, there's a unlimited supply of toys, many of which are not very expensive, although my kids seem to only want the expensive ones. How in this society where everything is accessible can we find the meaning of the spiritual? Because in our ancient ancestors' day, hundreds of years ago, they had more time to themselves to contemplate these things. They had more quiet time, more talking time. It was a necessity to try and find meaning because they did not have all of these things to distract them. Like, the search for meaning is easily put to the side when I want to watch my show, or when I'm going to go see a play, or when we're going to go to the playground, or when we're going to go to karate or gymnastics. So in our hustle bustle life, how do we do it? Now, ironically, and I forgot the quote, who was it? There is a famous rabbi who talked about spirituality and how we find it. And it was like, 4 hours a day for reading the Talmud, and 2 hours a day for reading the Bible, and 3 hours a day for doing this study, and 3 hours for this, and then 5 hours for sleep. And that's how he did it. The spirituality was searching all day long. So now up to you. How do you guys find your spirituality, Jewishly or outside the Jewish world? Where do you find the wonderment, the connection? How do you find the search for God, Karen? And you're on mute, by the way. Karen, you're on mute, just to let you know.
I know. So I'm going to share something very personal. Because I was at another class a few years ago, and where the rabbi, I think it was Rabbi Cantor, as a matter of fact, was asking, when have we experienced God in our lives? And many years ago, I was on a trip through my daughter, through Arizona, Utah, and someone we met along with one of the park rangers told us about this place that was sort of off the beaten path, about 3 miles down a dirt road that had this amazing view. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go try this. Anyway, it's a place called Muley Point in Utah. Could look it up, M-U-L-E-Y, if you want to look at pictures of it. And we go down this dirt road. There is nothing down there. There are animal skeletons on the side of the road. And I'm thinking, where the heck are we going? And about 3 miles down this dirt road, we come to this spot where you can see this amazing view, no roads, no cars, no people. I mean, my daughter and I were the only 2 people there. And I just stood there and I thought, this is the way, as I say, nothing man-made, no homes, no buildings, nothing. And I had this sudden overwhelming feeling of this is the way the world looked when God created it. And I truly felt God's presence in that moment. And it's still so vivid in my mind, that moment. So, and there've been other times, but that particular comes to my mind of really feeling something extraordinary.
And that's beautiful. And that would be a Martin Buber, I Thou moment, where my spirituality comes from this moment where I feel this connection in the moment. And it lasts for a short amount of time, but I feel it and it is very strong. And so that's a beautiful thing. Anybody else want to share?
Yeah,
Is that Ron?
yeah. It's the hand.
The hand.
You know, it's very interesting. Karen, that was lovely what you said.
Thank you.
And I agree with you. And, you know, I find spirituality on so many different things. I can look out the window and see a beautiful day. I can see beautiful trees, and I can only think of even what I said last week is that I look at people for who they are, and I try to find the good things in people. And this is something you don't even have to think about. It's the way you are, and everything you do during the day can be spiritual.
And that is, I'm sorry, you want to do more? Because that was awesome.
No.
And that is beautiful. And so what we see, that is a great way appreciation of what we have, wonderment. Now, some people, like with math or athletics or music, have a special connection to the spirituality. They're better at it.
Oh, one other thing.
I'll keep going, Ron.
I have a very good memory. And going way, way back to the beginning of these sessions that we have, you said, God is everything, but God is nothing. So everything you look at is God. Even though, and when you say he's nothing or she's nothing, it's because you don't see him.
That's right. So now, again, when you say God is nothing, it is not an insult.
No.
It's meant to say, God is indescribable. I can't describe God, so it's nothing. So, as I mentioned, some people are attuned to the spirituality, and it comes a little easier, kind of like any other gift. You know, a musician can practice all they want, and they may never be somebody give me a good musician.
Virtuoso.
A virtuoso, a Beethoven or a Mozart, a composer.
Okay.
But we can all improve at it. Stuart, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, much of what you said this morning describes how to become more spiritual. And indeed, the whole argument between the Baal Shem Tov and the Vilna Gaon was essentially that. But the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of
Hasidism.
Hasidism, argued that spirituality was the key thing, really not behavior. But what we haven't discussed at all is why one would want to become spiritual. Why does one seek this kind of connection if not for some sort of a motive? And if one is seeking it for a motive, then to me, you're violating the whole idea of ethics. And
Well,
it becomes problematic in that sense. This is not to say, incidentally, that I am not spiritual. Just
Flossie.
Yeah, I didn't know if you saw me over here. When I think of spirituality, to me, it's very, can you hear me, Rabbi?
I can.
Okay. It's very personal. And my spirituality is talking up above. And I don't go bringing in looking for God, looking for this. It is my taking my Judaism and making it very personal, very individual to me.
And those are great points. So let's go over both of them. We'll start with Flossie. Flossie is the epitome of a Musar student. The 19th century brought the idea of individuality, being an individual, which was not part of Judaism. You were always part of a community. How do you become spiritual as an individual Jew as well as a communal Jew? And that's what Flossie was just saying. I am Jewish, and I want to find some sort of personal, private connection as an individual. And Stewart also brought up one of the great dichotomies in Judaism. You're supposed to be a good person and not be a good person because you want to go to heaven. But of course, heaven is always in the back of your mind when you help somebody out. It's inevitable that you're saying, well, I'm being a good person. Oh, hopefully I'll get to heaven. So the question of how am I being selfish by wanting to be spiritual? And the answer is that is what ethics comes in. Is being a spiritual a way for me to improve myself or make myself better than others? In Judaism, it says it has to be ethically based. And so if it's leading you in that direction, then it is not Jewish spirituality.
I guess, can I say something?
No, please, David.
I guess for me, as I just, hear this and I've thought about it before and I've done a fair amount of reading, I don't really, understand the concept of the domain of spirituality apart from ethics.
No,
Because it seems like every time we talk about
it's okay.
the spiritual side, it's the beauty of nature. It's behaving in a way that, brings one in harmony with other people and all that. So I'm not really quite sure, what it means to be searching for spirituality apart from seeking to live in accordance with an appropriate ethical framework.
And so that's the start. So we're living in I'm an ethical person. But what if I want more? What if I feel like I'm missing something inside? What if I feel like I'm being ethical, but I am lonely? Not in terms of I have maybe a wife and kids and friends, but I am lonely and I'm missing something extra. Because not everybody searches for the spiritual, which is okay. Because remember, so what if I need more? I need a quest to find out my place in the universe, why what I do impacts the whole. So some people need the spiritual to bring them to another level. The world's in chaos. How can I find a connection? How can I find my personal place? And some people don't need to look for the spiritual, and Judaism does not say you're required to do it. So it's like the Kabbalah. You're not required to study Kabbalah. Traditionally you do it at 40 once you've lived your life. And, back then 40 was if you made it to 40, you've lived your life, you've had kids and grandkids, and you're going to die soon. So
Don't say that.
this is the ancient world.
Do you see study of Kabbalah as a part of what we should do as part of our Judaism, as part of our modern Judaism, if you will?
If you want to search for something more, then it's a good place to go. Again, the idea is be learned, be a good person, be good to others, raise your family if you have a family, be kind and generous, be Jewish, follow rituals, come to services, believe in God. But if you want more, that's an option. It's extra credit. You don't have to do it. There is nowhere that states that if you do more Kabbalah, God is going to love you more. And they didn't even state that if you do more Kabbalah, you're going to go to a higher level of heaven. That is all based on ethics. You go to a higher level of heaven. For those who believe in levels of heaven, you go to a higher level because not because you were more spiritual, you go to a higher level because you were a better human being, a better person. So the spiritual is a wonderful way, and I think it's probably even more important today because we do live longer and we do have more time. And we do, if we have a family, we do have 30 or 40 years after our kids have grown up. And we do have time after we've, job has to come first. Providing for the family has to come first. But as time goes on, that may have been checked off. So searching for the spiritual is a wonderful way. Lou.
Is Kabbalah specifically Jewish? You hear movie stars, Madonna, whatever, studying Kabbalah. Is it specifically Jewish?
It is completely Jewish. Now, people may say they're studying Kabbalah and certain things. You certainly can study it in certain ways and take it outside of Judaism, but it is a Jewish discipline.
Okay.
And at its core, to study Kabbalah, you're supposed to have mastered a lot of other Jewish law first.
Okay.
So yes, it is a Jewish discipline.
Okay.
And it's become famous. But again, Kabbalah is not the only way to find spirituality. It's just the most recognizable today. If we had talked about this 50 years ago, Kabbalah would not have been the most recognizable way. It would have been one of them, but there's Musar would have probably been even more so for us. But Kabbalah has become, a hit. Made a comeback. It's like, Alexander Hamilton. Hundreds of years after, its beginnings and its heyday, it makes a comeback, and Alexander Hamilton is bigger than ever and probably venerated more and probably much more beloved, because I don't know how beloved he was in his day. Everybody knew he was brilliant, but I don't know how beloved he was. Flossie.
The way you're showing Judaism has evolved, and what was important years ago might not have the priority today. Is that strictly Reform Judaism, or all the Judaism branches are feeling that way?
All of them. I mean, again, you see the Orthodox becoming much more insulated, but everybody feels the pressure from the outside in some ways. And it's a good pressure. It's the best pressure of all time. I mean, I'm not being pressured to convert. I'm not being pressured to give extra taxes, or I'm going to be killed, or my son is not going to be conscripted. And I don't feel pressure that there's going to be somebody come into town anytime they want and take stuff from my store legally. The pressure is from all the good stuff, the acculturation, all the wonderful things that are out there in the Western world. That's the pressure. And so for some, we leave it outside and we build our walls. And for others, we say, yeah, I'm going to take advantage of it. And I may not be as ritualistic, but I want to be spiritual. I want to be a good person and spiritual, even if I don't go to services or light the Shabbat candles. And so that's where the Musar movement comes in. Now, the Orthodox world, they use it in a different way. It's not about, just about doing things non-ritualistically. They have other ways of doing it. All right, so we'll conclude with that. Now, David has given us some great ideas for topics, diaspora and Israel relations, anti-Semitism today and in the past, Jews in politics, conversion process, Isaac Herzog's Voice of the People initiative, Jewish world interest beyond anti-Semitism. So any of those, David, you want us to start off with? Did I get them right?
I would just, some of them kind of relate. I guess,
Yeah.
and maybe it's better to stay on it seems like we're moving from spirituality to something, more, down in the dirt, I suppose. But a lot of them sort of relate to the issue of how we, what is happening with global Jewry, and, how do we, fit in, and how do we, see our interests being promoted. And obviously a big part is the relationship between the center and the periphery, the Israel and diaspora. Who is a Jew, conversion, who makes these decisions? Who's the communicator? We don't really have, the voice of the people is adopted as a way of, sort of communicating these things, but we obviously have lots of internal divisions. So, all of those things kind of, seem to be part of the whole question of, what we're all doing, and are we little separate groups, or, what are we doing?
I think it's great. We'll do that next week. We'll talk about global Judaism. All right. That's a great idea. All right. So we'll do that next week. Global Judaism. I just made a simple topic to it. But yes, we'll
It's
talk
complex,
about
right?
But you can narrow it down and
Right, we could do it in
in the
different pockets.
context.
Yeah, we can do
Yeah.
context
What
group.
context?
Probably
we'll
do
do
it for
that.
the rest of the year.
Yeah, we'll probably do that. We can do that next couple weeks. We'll get it all done in a week and in 1 hour,
Yeah.
just like we did spirituality. We can do spirituality forever. This was so again.
Fascinating day.
What's coming up? Tuesday night. What time is it? 7:00, Karen, or
7 o'clock. Oh, my class, 7 o'clock, 7 to
7
8:30.
o'clock for 4 weeks, 7 to
Yeah.
8:30 on Zoom. Check out the link. And then Food Festival is 2 weeks from Sunday. If you're not, if you haven't signed up, please come to volunteer or to come and just eat. All right, bring friends, lots of them. Bring hordes. Bring battalions and platoons.
Have we should be sending something out to like Oseh Shalom,
Oh, we should be.
Yam, and like I'm sure. Well,
I'm sure they're doing it. Yeah.
yeah. But really, even Charleston.
Send it
I
all
just
right
want
now.
to. There's something interesting. Debbie Stacino forwarded the email with the announcement about my class to a friend of hers in Charleston who's a docent there. And all of a sudden now I have about 10 of the docents from KKBE in Charleston who are going to be who signed up for my class. They actually asked me if that was okay to share it. So
Absolutely. The more the
Yeah.
merrier.
yeah, some of our docents might want to do it.
Well, we've sent it to the Federation.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yeah. So I'm getting responses from people whose names I don't recognize. So I'm sure who knows.
But we'll also put it on
Okay.
YouTube. We'll teach you. We have to teach you how to put it on YouTube or whoever, so we go straight onto it.
Whoops.
Well, anyway, wonderful.
All right. Thank you much.
Everyone have a great rest of the week. So
Take care, everybody.
all our best to Stuart and Michael and Ron, Arlene, and Flossie and Karen and David and Lou and Arnold and whoever else is watching on YouTube. So all our best, and we will see you next week, same time, same bat channel on the Wednesday class that shall not be named.
Take
Thank you,
care.
Rev.
Guys.
Thank you.